It can be really frustrating if you've been playing for a while, but it doesn't feel like your technique's been getting any better. You're stuck at the same level, you're making the same mistakes, and you just feel a little bit lost. So this is the exact method that I use to be able to push my playing forward, whatever the level I'm at. So you can work anywhere from right at the beginning, just started playing, all the way to world-class musician, and still trying to hit that next level. The first thing to understand is we're just installing a new operating system. If you've ever trained a dog or other animals, you'll be using very similar principles. But when it comes to our own learning, somehow we throw all of these out of the window and then start doing things randomly. So let's bring it back down to the training methods that actually work, that we've studied, that work with any animal, including for humans. The learning process is taking conscious thought. This is the knowledge that we want to install and moving that into the unconscious, which is going to be the behavior that we want to be showing when we're not focused on consciously pulling out the techniques we want to be doing. Of course, on the guitar, there are going to be hundreds of layers of different things we're doing, and we can't be focused on all of them at the same time. So an essential part of this process is moving one idea from the knowledge of conscious and then moving that to the behavior in unconscious. If we get a little bit more neurological about this without getting too much into the weeds, you've got your neurons and then you've got the synapses, which are the connections between the neurons. And the information, the knowledge that you are learning and that becomes your behavior is building synapses, building bridges between these different neurons. The pattern that this creates is then what creates our behavior. When the trigger, the electrical signal that goes through this pattern of synapses, excites them, brings them up to life, that is then the operating system we are working by. But there is a big warning in this, which is if you have several different things you've been doing, you would have built several different operating systems, different bridges, and we want to make sure that there is one dominant one, which is the one you want to be doing, that takes control. Otherwise, the second you have a little bit more pressure on you, the second you speed up, maybe you're a bit more tired, suddenly one of the others is just going to spark out of nowhere, and that is what we call old and bad habits. Keep this in mind because at the end of the video you're going to see why this is going to be the exact thing that is holding you back and keeping you at the same level year upon year. And now the method that I have used for many years to push forward my playing and hundreds of my students have used also to push forward theirs is the LASERS system. It stands for locate, analyze, strategize, execute, repetition, and then sleep. So let's run through this system so that you can use it and find that next win, that next step up in your skill. Locate. This is step number one because of course if you don't know what you're improving, you're not going to be able to improve it. You'll be doing random guesswork. So slightly obvious step, but the first thing to do is maybe play through a section of a song and decide on one thing that you want to improve. Now don't jump the gun. This is where everyone jumps all the way through to the repetition phase and they found the problem, they played 1,000 times over saying practice makes perfect, but it doesn't. Let's go back to our operating system. When you have built the synaptical connection between neurons, you've got your framework for the behavior, the repetitions is just strengthening this behavior. You're not going to improve it, you're just going to have a deeper and deeper foundation with the behavior, the technique that you do not want to do. So instead, we go to analyze. When you are analyzing, you're not playing, you're just deciding what is it that I need to do that is going to push this technique forward. Let's take an example. If I'm playing a note here and I want to hammer on, so this is my C sharp on the 2nd fret, I want to hammer on my D sharp. Now, what if I keep missing it slightly closer to the 3rd string? So we've located our problem, we want to analyze it. What could it be that's making my finger miss too deep into the neck, hitting closer to the 3rd string? Well, if my elbow is closer in, it'll push that finger deeper and deeper, closer to the bass. So if I lift my elbow up a little bit, it'll drag my finger onto the second string. So we've located our problem, we've analysed it, we've found a solution to it. Now we want to go to step number 3, which is find a strategy for it, some kind of method that makes it easier to learn. Is it make an exercise that helps improve it? Is it break down the piece into much smaller sections so that you know what you're doing, you're much more conscious of that section? Maybe it's going to be slowed down, whatever it happens to be. Find some kind of method that you know will let you do this every single time. Now we're at the stage where we can try and execute the idea. After the execution phase is the repetition phase. We're going to put these right next to each other but discuss the difference between the two because they are fundamentally different even though both of them are carrying out the solution. And the difference is the execution phase is mostly conscious. This takes a lot of focus to be able to hold up the new method we're trying to do. When we haven't got a new operating system built and installed, we need to use focus as a proxy for familiarity. Just like when you are building a building and you would have scaffolding up, which is kind of the proxy building in place while you're building the bricks inside that. If you take the scaffolding off too early, everything collapses down. So focus is a proxy for the familiarity we would have in an already built system. That is the execution phase. When you have built the synapses, you've built the bridge between the neurons, now you have a pathway. The execution phase is now largely done and we can move on to the repetition phase. Repetition is all about familiarity with what you've already built. The execution covered building it, whereas the familiarity, the repetition phase, is about strengthening it. And you'll see this while you're playing. If I'm doing that hammer, and each time I do it, I have to think a lot about exactly where my elbow is, then you're in the execution phase. When the concentration level suddenly dips, and you can do it repeatedly, you're not thinking as much about it, that is the phase where you've moved into repetition and trying to build familiarity. Now let's bounce back to what we were saying about bad habits creeping in. What I see all the time is someone would say, yes, I've located what I need to do, I've found the solution to it, I've analysed it, and I spent 5-10 minutes today focusing on just that. Then I played all of my pieces, enjoying them for the next hour or two. But what happens then is, in those 10 minutes, absolutely, you could be doing really good technique. Then you reward yourself by putting that aside and doing all of the bad habits that we want to be avoiding. This means 90% of your time is still in strengthening the foundations behind what you do not want to be doing. We want to flip this equation. You need to be doing 90% of exactly the behavior you want, the new technique, the next level up, and as little as possible of the habit you're trying to eradicate. Otherwise, the habit will always win. It'll always be stronger than the idea that you want to be pushing forward. This is where people hit a plateau. Now, I've been using terms like operating systems, but we are not machines, and this is where sleep comes in. A lot of this work happens when you are asleep. You have built the synapses, you've exercised them a bit to try and refine them, build that familiarity around them, but now you need to have a rest, you need to leave your brain to recover and build while you're sleeping. This would be just like if you go to the gym. Yes, you could train maybe for half an hour, depending on the intensity of the exercise you're doing, but training for 5 hours, 10 hours with the same thing is not going to help. You need to step back, you need to recover, and it's in that recovery period where you're building muscle, or in our case, we're building the connections, the neurology behind the techniques that we want to be using. So let's recap over these. We have located what we want to be changing. We have then analysed it to find what it is, what solution we can put in place that's better than what we were doing before. We've then found a strategy or some kind of method so so that we can install this in the best way possible. From there, we have used focus to execute this. This is where we really concentrate, we focus on doing exactly what we want to do, the new idea, and not letting the habit creep in. Then moving on to the repetition phase, this is where we are strengthening the bridge. We are strengthening this synaptical connection so that it is more familiar and stronger than the old habit. And then finally, we can sit back and rest while this builds, and we can feel satisfied and happy that we're about to be awesome guitarists. You can have hard work, guesswork, or framework, and this is the framework to get you as efficiently moving forward in your playing as possible. So if you got any value ideas from this video, like, follow, subscribe, all of the good stuff, and if you want to upload a video of you playing the guitar, drop the link in the comments. It could be a YouTube video, it could be on Instagram. I can then help with exactly the stage in this that you are stuck on. Just drop it in the comments and let me know what it is you want help with. Also, if you want to know a little bit more about ear training on the guitar, check out this video here where I break down some ideas that'll help you start recognizing notes and intervals that previously you would have thought of as impossible. I'll see you in there.